Hello, all you truth seekers out there. Today we will be discussing just a very quick podcast on aluminum and magnesium. It's very important because the aluminum compound has like almost kryptonite or a full-blown enemy in magnesium. And magnesium seems to be the opposite to aluminum in some ways. Um, Not only as far as detoxification, but also as far as, integrity and healthy bone structure and tissue that is less capable of bringing in unattached aluminum, free aluminum in the body because the structure is integral. And so these two different ways in which magnesium helps the structure to fight or become more integral and thus block out aluminum and the detoxification pathway through magnesium are both keys to get this stuff in, to get this stuff out and then to not allow it to find harbor if it ever gets in. So how that works is I would not recommend what a lot of sites recommend, which is just go buy a bunch of magnesium malate and take 1,000 milligrams and it's all going to go away and everybody's happy. Because the problem with that theory is not only is the malate, L-form malate that we buy as a supplement different than the R-form malate that's in the body that's created live, through the connection between magnesium and the enzyme catalyzation process that magnesium upregulates and the malic acid that's found throughout the body, in the tissues, in the food that we eat, that we bring this into the body as well. So these things are very important because the magnesium will attach to this malic acid naturally occurring. Now, a lot of times when you read about malic acid, the first thing they teach you or tell you is you need to go eat a bunch of apples and all this stuff. What they don't tell you is how the apples have been produced today and what the state of Washington does with the apparently organic wax that they put on the apples, which is not really organic. It also has chemical pesticides in it, some to a very small degree. It has some agents, some chemical agents in it. There is a truly organic wax which would be made from possibly, like paraffin or something. But in general, these waxes are allowed to have other things in them because they're just considered a wax or an additive more than a treatment or, whatever kind of legislation. And so now that we know that the USDA and Monsanto are even more bedfellows, since the head of the Secretary of Agriculture today was the former CEO of Monsanto, Vilsack, Tom Vilsack, I think that's his name, who was under Obama and now under Biden. So knowing this, you should also know that the USD label is about to get watered down. I mean, not like it wasn't already, not like you already didn't have to go to farmers markets and you already didn't have to go to multiple certifications and not just no GMO, but no GMO plus organic, plus this other type of entity, plus like local sometimes, depending on where you're at, and all these other things you have to do, which farmers markets actually can end up helping you cut through a lot of that. When I go to a farmer's market and I buy peaches here in Texas, I ask them, well, what do you treat them with? What kind of pesticide do you treat them with? Because I know they treat them with something. And the three last people I spoke to had to go into detail about how they used copper, and the other one used, I think it was some sort of orange concentration, essential oils from orange production. And so, you have to learn about this stuff because otherwise you're not going to be able to ask any of those questions in the grocery store or even in the natural food store. So this is important. Get the right stuff. One of the best places to get malic acid, if you can't get through the apple paradigm, which is, you have to kind of like cook a little bit for like 10 minutes and then you toss the water and then you make your apple purees and you buy a bag of these apples and stuff. So maybe. But if you're going to the grocery store and buying grocery store organics, trust me, I've thrown out 2 or 3 huge batches of grocery store organic apples already that were made into a type of, pureed apples, and it was, I had gut issues, and so yes, there's something going on there. So find the right stuff, and if you can't, you can find frozen or fresh rhubarb, typically sometimes in the frozen section at like a grocery store, in little cubed up pieces or whatever. And this is a great source of malic acid on a plant or that hasn't been treated. It's not, they don't wax it. They also don't treat this type of plant, and it's not a typical plant. It's very rustic. It grows almost like a weed. Not like a weed, but I mean it grows like it's very persistent, and I'm not sure if it's perennial, but it might be. Like it'll keep growing back every year. As compared to like annuals, which you have to replant every year. But anyway, look into it. It's a good way to get malic acid into the body. And then when you team up with transdermal magnesium or topical magnesium, which means you allow a much stronger dose because you're using the whole body, the whole surface of the skin. That kidney is a very small organ. No matter how much we think you're supposed to take pills, it's still a very small organ processing those pills. And if you use your whole surface area of your body to process the magnesium chloride, you pull off a much greater dose without triggering the laxative system, harming the kidneys or anything else. We would know that they were harmed if we really paid more attention and gave up coffee as a nation. Then we'd probably see that we have a lot of kidney insufficiency. But we keep stimulating and we just keep staying in a sort of body denial. And so this is a great way to get aluminum out of the body. It detoxifies aluminum. The magnesium malate teams up with the magnesium. They create a magnesium malate. R form, not the L form that you buy in the stores. Live, everything is happening live with the right acid that doesn't have all the pesticides and other things attached to it. And we bring that in to fractalize, I guess you could say, the aluminum compounds in the body, making them a little bit smaller through a sort of like ammoniac principle, even though it's more of an acidity principle. But there's kind of a breaking down of the aluminum. Then the aluminum in more of a chemical form or can be actually released from the body through however the body can get it out. And the closer, the better. I mean, if it goes through the stools, okay, the hair a lot. Also, the hair has all sorts of minerals analysis, but you coming through the scalp through a type of sweating that we do, which is not just normal sweating. The body actually breathes too. And so things are emitted from the body. It's not for nothing that you lose like a pound or a pound and a half. I forget exactly how much it is, almost a pound and something every night when you sleep. And that's not just, there's a lot of things that are exhaled. There's carbon, there's water, there's things that leave us through that. And that process has actual weight to it. If you could measure it all for those 8 hours. And so we do get some of this out through those means. We get a lot of it out through sweat. We get a lot of it out through, like I said, the stool. And, pretty much however the body can get it out, it has to come out through the lung system or whatever. So the body's always detoxifying. Detoxifying isn't just some like quirky idea of like naturopaths. It's exactly what we're always doing. We're always trying to detoxify the toxins that are coming into our body. And there's a lot of them right now from, all sorts of stuff in the air, water, the food, everything, even the medicines now. Like pretty much everything is getting contaminated to some degree if it's not sourced properly. And so this is a good way to get magnesium out of the body. The using the magnesium over time, it takes 7 years. Boring, but the long-term game is the game you got to pay the most attention to. This is how we get out of the magnesium deficiency is through long-term 7 years. This stuff builds up. And the first year is the most important. So it's not like, oh, I'm just trying to sell you something for 7 years. Nope. The First year's the most important. The years after that, you buy hardly any. You're at like 50 cents a week. It doesn't cost anything. You're out of medical slavery. But trying to help people find the right stuff in glass, one ingredient with no endocrine disruptors, nothing contaminating the magnesium molecule, and start to help people see the natural state molecule concept and what that means. To have a natural state magnesium that's coming from a clear stone, not stones that are white that they have to go and cut and add chemicals and solvent treat that can be found everywhere in cheaper, non-discerning strata, or through Tibetan exploitation. 80% of the market is Chinese magnesium, but through a clear stone underneath the North Sea in Europe with actual traceability and transparency. No proprietary, anything. We tell everyone our source, and you can call them yourself. So anyway, come check us out at theheartoftradition.com. Over time, the structure of the body does thwart a magnesium fixation in the body. Aluminum fixation in the bones and the weakening of the structure that it can do over time. Magnesium, high magnesium through the life cycle keeps that from happening. It allows for the bone to have its own resistance its own resistance to, I guess you could say, like, what would you call that? Attachment of the magnesium to the lattice or to the structure. The structure is so important because of the way it's like the layer, like the hydroxyapatite layer of the bone, or the surface layer of the bone, or even let's just take the surface area of a tree. Like if you have a surface area of a tree, they're noticing that due to like metals and especially aluminum fallout from, heavy spraying or jet fuels, and also weather control modulation, things in certain areas, they've watched these trees have a lot more deposition of aluminum on the leaves. Now, it's true that for pecan farmers, I've got friends who are pecan farmers here in Texas, they spray zinc yearly on their leaves to help the trees. So this is the reverse of that, right? So this is spraying like aluminum on the tree, right? And so what that does is that actually shuts down the tree in a metabolic way. There you go. It shuts down the tree in a metabolic way. It puts it into a kind of sleep, metabolically speaking, and it also allows for a rigidification or a stratification, or what, I don't know the exact word, but a drying, maybe, of the surface of the leaves. And so what happens is that drying out over time, because of that free form aluminum, not aluminum in silica that you find in clay and like the Earth's crust and it's everywhere and all that stuff, but a free form of this actually starts to degrade the edges of the structure. And then guess what happens? Then you throw a match at that tree and it just burns like there was no tomorrow. Now, that wouldn't happen if the tree had its own natural humidity and natural forces working with it. And those come through the smell. You can smell those forests too. But we can't smell as much of that stuff in the forest anymore if they have this kind of invasive toxin. So that's just one example of an outer effect of what that aluminification can do to the epithelium, I guess you could say. But in the body, it's the same thing. And so there has to be a degrading of that layer, that surface layer, for these things to start happening. And magnesium allows for that surface area, along with calcium, to have a structure which kind of like sparkles and just is really strong and doesn't allow for any kind of penetration. It's just like anything we do in life, where you paint your home. There's minerals in it, there's things, and we try to get the paints a certain way to where they do certain things on the wall, and then we paint a coat, and then we do a primer, and whatever we do. So we build it up, and then there's a kind of protection. So these kind of logic is actually happening in the body too, and it can be broken down if the deficiencies are there and the aluminum is nonstop in a present way in your life cycle. So you have to fight this black magic with this white magic, I guess you could say, and keep the magnesium abundant through the life cycle. So come check us out for the real stuff at theheartoftradition.com. Don't get the fake stuff, always in glass, always only one ingredient, never diluted. always with the Zechstein Inside logo and the source that you can call yourself. theheartoftradition.com.